Good afternoon, everybody. This is Anna Sothen, your podcast host of the RVA Connected, and I am so excited to have my very dear friend Candice Suarez on with me today to talk to you guys about Optimum Ed and what she does for a living on a daily basis. I know that she's helped my family and I. So, well, first of all, Candice, say hi.
Hi.
Tell everybody who you are.
I'm Candice Suarez. I am managing partner of Optimum Ed. And I consider myself a life transition coach, right? And that first transition, that first big stressful transition is graduating from high school and figuring out what to do next, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about because you're now managing partner. So when you and I first met, that was not the case. That's a recent
Yeah,
occurrence, correct? Yeah.
yeah.
So tell everybody how you stepped into going from being an employee of Optimum Ed to stepping into being a managing partner. Like what was that process like?
Well, my background is in school counseling, right? So when I met Tom, I had just moved here to Virginia. I was looking for what I was going to do next, and it was a perfect fit for me. So it was a matter of stepping a toe in, and I was an independent contractor for him, for a couple of years. And the more I did it, the more passionate I became about it. And I really wanted to have a say in the direction it was going to be going and and inject me into it a little bit more. So that was how it came about. Yeah.
I
Just
love
wanting to have more of a say in the direction that we were going to be going.
I love that. So when that sort of leads to what you
Yeah.
do, right? So you also had a transition yourself of going from being a school counselor, and you sort of do still counsel,
Oh, I
students.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I don't think you've left that behind. But I think that's perfect. So let's talk a little bit about your vision for Optimum Ed and what it is that you would like to do with it.
I think that first of all, we do college planning first
Okay.
and foremost, but we do it very differently than a lot of other places. Our first thing that we do with every student is a career and academic assessment, right?
Okay.
Which helps them discover who they are, what they're good at. It goes into personality, cognitive ability, and how they process information, interests, and it gives them a set of careers, right? So we really focus a lot on that direction and
Okay.
that vision for where their life could go, and not to pigeonhole them into a career because but just to get them curious, just to get them thinking of all the possibilities that could be out there for them.
I
Yeah.
love
And from there, if college is a necessary step to get to that career, we do everything to get them into college too.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about this assessment because I know my daughter did it with you guys, and I
Yeah.
think we were a little surprised, as was she, as to things that were her strengths, right? I think they were, I wouldn't say they were the complete opposite of what she was thinking, but it was, different than what she was thinking. So talk to us a little bit about that process and what that looks like for the user, right? So my daughter, as she's going through it, and then the process of at the end of disseminating the information.
Yeah. I think what makes it different from other assessments is that it's not quick, right? It takes almost an hour to complete.
Yep.
And we try and preface that to the students, but I think they're still surprised at how long it takes them. And then we don't just say, okay, here's the results, good luck, right? Assessment, we call it an assessment process because it includes 2 sessions with us, right? We spend an hour going over those results, really teaching them about what it means, right? What does it mean if I'm high in sociability? What does that mean for me? What does that mean for a potential career? What does it mean if I make decisions intuitively instead of with data? what kind of jobs would that suit, right? So you learn a lot more about yourself than just, I should be a bricklayer, right? Yeah. And then we give them a report, and they can spend some time on a database that gives them more information about those careers. I also give them a processing form that asks them to choose three of two careers paths that they might be considering. I asked them, that form asks them how excited that job makes them, why they think this is a good fit. And also ask them to look at some practical information like how much does it pay? What is the outlook of that career? So we ask them to really take a look at that job from, is it gonna excite me, but also is it gonna pay the bills?
Right.
So, and then we get together for a second meeting where they share that information with us. And that meeting is also really fun because they really share what their thinking is. And then I always jump in with, oh, okay, so why did you pick that? And have you ever thought of this? Because this really taps into this over here, and it's that back and forth conversation, right?
Right. I love that. So talking about, because you're right, like transitioning out of high school into adulthood, right, can be intimidating.
Yeah.
So you like to be that life coach of like, okay, let's talk about what that next step looks like. So share with me what being a life coach looks like or what that means to you.
Yeah. So I'm working on launching that, but I really want to take what I do with my adult clients and do it for teens, right? Because it's the same thing. They are still developmentally not quite ready for those big existential questions, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't ask them. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to teach them how to do that. And yes, a 16-year-old doesn't know what they want to do for the rest of their lives.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they don't have to, right? But my mission is to teach them how to continue to evaluate themselves, how to teach them, like, what are my values? How can I make decisions based on what I believe in, right? And yes, that will evolve as
Right.
they grow. That's why that is a continual process that they should do every year. I mean, I do that every year.
Right. Yeah.
And to teach them that you don't have to decide right now what you're going to do, but thinking of direction, being creative, thinking about, being curious about, okay, so what does this career entail for me? What does being, in that role mean for me? And having them start questioning it,
Right.
having them experience it in shadowing opportunities, informational interviews, and doing that early, right? Having them take an active role in making those decisions. And not just make decisions because mom and dad told me to, or because all their friends are doing that, or because it looks like a cool career on TikTok.
Right.
But really being intentional about it and making sure it aligns with who you are.
Right. I think that's super important because kids are when they get out of high school, yes, they go to college and they pick a major, right? Usually some people pick a major immediately and then other people they do their like basic courses and then they start to pick a major and go from there. But nobody really has conversations. I mean, we have conversations with our kids of like, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? I've had that with my daughter. She told me she wants to be a hairdresser, but really having a nuts and bolts conversation or let's peel the layer back of what that looks like is not a conversation that we have with kids, right? And I think it's super important because then you like you said, you go and you do the things because mommy and daddy want you to do that, or it's popular on TikTok, so that's what I'm going to do. And then you get stuck doing it. And how many people who are in their 30s and 40s and 50s were like, I'm miserable. I hate what
Yeah,
I'm,
yeah. And
right?
I've been saying, like, they lift their head and realize, oh my God, what am I doing here? How did I get here? And they're living somebody else's life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes that's the beauty of hiring someone like me, is that I have no vested interest in what they choose to do.
Right.
Whereas they'll feel that pressure from mom and dad, even if the mom and dad is
Right.
conscious about not pressuring, they still know what they feel like they should do.
Yeah. Yeah. We've, I say we've done that, more so my husband. I'm throwing him under the bus here, but we've had this conversation before
Yeah.
where I'm very much of the mindset, like, college is not the answer for everybody. And there's so many different opportunities. My
Mhm.
thing has always been just continue to learn, whatever that looks
Yes.
like for you. As long as you're constantly learning and growing yourself, then I think you're good. So does that mean going into a trade? Does that mean,
Mhm.
taking a gap year, whatever that looks like? Where my husband, on the other hand, is very much, you must go to college, right? But having that conversation, I think, opens the door and the opportunity for somebody to realize that we don't all have to do the exact same
We
thing,
don't. We
right?
don't.
I know. We
Yeah.
don't. Let me say it
Yeah.
again. We don't.
We don't. We don't all have to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And the path can be different for everyone.
Yeah. And the path should be different for everybody,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like you said, it's how does this make me feel? And so if you
Mhm.
wake up one day and you're like, I'm miserable, I feel like I'm living somebody else's life, then the world has been deprived of you at your greatness, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I think that's super important. So I think having that conversation beforehand is essential. Like, I think
Yeah.
it's necessary that we start having those conversations.
And
Um,
I honestly think, I talk to a lot of people about this, and a lot of people assume that means I'm pressuring them to make a decision.
right.
And what I want to do is take that pressure off, right? They don't have to make a set in stone decision.
Right.
Should they maybe make a decision for, a 5-year plan? Yes. But, we don't do the same job for 40 years and retire anymore.
No, no,
So,
it's not happening.
no, taking that pressure off of them and letting them know, giving them the freedom to be curious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think curiosity is something that we should
Yeah.
adopt at all times, right? About
Yes.
everything in life. Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about we did talk about the assessment and stuff like that. So if somebody does choose to work with you at Optimum Ed, move forward, what does that process look like? So after they've taken the assessment, now what?
Yeah, so if they're going to go to college and we determine that, we start with building that resume, building that high school resume of activities, extracurriculars, starting to tell their unique story. And again, I'm going to talk on that should, right? Just because everybody tells you should belong to this club or that club,
Right.
I like to treat that high school resume building as opportunities for exploration, right? Try clubs that sound interesting to you. Do volunteer work or shadowing opportunities that will give you a taste of possible career paths,
Right.
right? Do things that are interesting, not just because you think you should, right?
Right.
So building that resume, that's why we love to get high schoolers earlier, so we can help them make those decisions. My son took our assessment as an 8th grader because that was when I was starting with Optimum Ed. And he has taken his electives in high school based on what his assessment told him.
I love that.
To kind of try it on and feel it out. So that has been successful for us.
Yeah. And you're right. So, and that's a point I wanted to make, that oftentimes, and just life and things happen and stuff like that, but we don't start thinking about the next step until it's like junior, senior year,
Yeah.
right? At that point, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, right? It's too late.
Yeah. It's
to-
never too late, but yeah.
Right. It's never too late, but it behooves you, and it's so much more beneficial to you if you start having that conversation. Like
It is.
like your son, he took it in the 8th grade, so he was able to tailor his additional or his extracurricular activities and what do they call the courses that are not mandatory? They're elective.
Electives, yeah.
They're electives. Like he tailored them to things that he enjoyed versus, oh, I have to do this, or I'm just going to do this because I don't know what else to do. Right. So if
Right,
he
yeah.
knows, oh, I'm musically inclined, so I'm going to go and do music, or I would rather, do art or paint or whatever the case may be. Like he can start taking those classes and and then learn at a very early age. Oh my gosh, I thought I liked that. No, I don't.
Exactly. You rule it out or
Get it.
you rule it in. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then after that, we have a conversation about college campuses, what they're looking for in a college campus. We do a college search for them and give them a big long list. The school has to have the majors that they're considering. Whether, different location, size, all of those parameters. So we give them a list to consider. We have an online application management tool that we load the suggested tools into, and they can research them right there in our platform, and then move them over and start developing their own list from that. We help them tailor that list when we get closer to application time. So they have a good mix of tools that are, the safety tools, so to speak, ones that are probable for them, and a mix of reach tools as well.
Okay.
We help them with essay topic generation. We help them make their essay. We help with application filling it out. We help with financial aid, all of that as well.
I love that. And so I saw your system, right? And it's it's a portal basically that gives you all of the colleges, and you get instead of you going out, because I remember like when I applied to college, I applied to 15 different colleges. So I had to go out and figure out, okay, if I'm going to go to this college, what do I need? What's required? And then this one, and then this one, and this one, where instead this is one hub where, like you said, it goes out there and based off your interest and location and all that kind of stuff, it sort of narrows it down, because how many hundreds of colleges are there that are available across the US?
Yeah.
Like hundreds, right? So
and we can look at, like, in our portal, we can look at your qualities as a student, like the GPA, test scores, and overlay in here. We can tell you a particular school right there. Instead of Googling it and having tabs open at the top or lists here and there, it's all in one place. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes it extremely valuable. And the time that is saved by having everything in one place is invaluable, I think.
Yeah.
As well too. So tell people how can they connect with you? How can they get this process started sooner, right?
Yeah,
so think
sooner instead of senior year. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So our website is optimumedcenter.com.
Okay.
And that has a wealth of information, including our packages that are available and all different kinds of resources. And on there is a talk to an advisor button, and that will book a complimentary half-hour spot with me. Okay. And we can talk more in detail about, your student, what their unique situation is, and go from there. I
love that. So yeah, so make sure that you reach, if you have a child who is, in the 8th grade, 9th grade, make sure that you're reaching out to them and at least start initiating that conversation, right? So that you can have, the more knowledge you have, the better off you're going to be. So thank you so much, Candace, for being here. Thank you for sharing about Optimum Ed. I think what you guys are doing is phenomenal. And I think more people need to know about it. Hence why we're doing the podcast, right? To get that out there. So connect with Candace, have that conversation with her so that you can figure out what the best foot, how to put your best foot forward, both for you and your child. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for listening to the RVA Connected. And if you're a business who would like to be on here, or if you know a business who you think would be a phenomenal guest on my podcast, I would love to interview them. So until then, my friends, stay fluid. I'm always cheering for you.